Bonjour à tous. Today the video is going to be in English because it's very difficult for me to add subtitles if I use different languages in the same video. So sorry about that, but there will be subtitles in French and in Russian. So the video of the day is an interview of Maria Butina that was filmed already 1 week ago, where I asked a few questions to understand a little bit more about the ideology visa. There are already plenty of interviews on the internet. I will link some down in the description in English and in French if you're interested. But I had a few more questions to ask, so I had the opportunity to have a short conversation with Maria Butina to explain a few more points. I'm going to add chapters in the video. You can check the description if you're more interested in some topics than others. You can just skip around in the video. So thank you so much for your time. I know that you're very busy. I wanted to complete maybe a little bit the information that the French side of future maybe migrants to Russia have. I have seen a few interviews that you did with Alexandre, for example. So I wanted just to ask the questions that came to my mind when I saw this interview. The first one of which is that I have a bit of a different audience from Alexandre. So it's more young people like my age who are from France and maybe thinking about moving to Russia. And the main issue for them is, first of all, the language and knowing if they will be able to find a job that matches what they would have in France. So, for example, I have a friend who is a jurist, a lawyer. So what would be your advice to those people? What would be your words to maybe reassure them?
Russia gives a lot of opportunities for people who are young and ambitious and they're talented, and they are professionals in all different fields. Well, first of all, of course, if you are from an IT sphere, it's actually the language doesn't matter so much. Meaning, you probably would like to learn Russian because you just want to feel comfortable living in a foreign country. However, it's not necessarily if you want to work in the IT field. Like the examples I can give you is this wonderful place in Nizhny Novgorod. It's about 3 hours from Moscow by train or a bit more by car. It's a nice city, well developed. More than 1 million people live there, but it's not too big. And they're building now a special campus for young researchers and people who want to build a business in IT with a special economic zone, which means zero income tax. And they offer you living opportunities, so school for kids and free medical, which is important. It's all brand new. So they will finish the development next year. Several campuses will be there. And on my video on X, I actually show how the rooms will look like. But this is for young people, and they also give many opportunities for those who want to study. Let's say not just your bachelor degree, but also your master's. In Russia, we have Study in Russia. It's a website. You can go in there, you can apply to different opportunities and actually study. And while studying in university, you will be able to learn Russian language. People typically deal with that quite quickly. And I saw examples that just it took them a year to become at least proficient enough so they're able to work and live in Russia. So I wouldn't be scared about that. Many people say Russian is very complicated and so on. Well, I saw plenty of examples of people who are adapting just fine. So I wouldn't be so worried about that.
Yes, it's more of maybe a psychological barrier, thinking that this language is so difficult that they don't even try, or it's too difficult even to think about.
Listen, I understand. I had a time in my life when I wanted to have a challenge, all right? So I started to learn Hebrew. Hebrew is one of the hardest languages. And guess what? This is very much possible. Now I don't have enough practice, but I used to speak German also.
Mhm.
And you can absolutely master that. This is all about efforts. If
Yes.
you put enough efforts in certain field, you're gonna learn it anyway. But think about the exciting opportunities that you're going to have. So you are going to be needed and your skills are going to be really important for your own development. And think about traveling. Many young people, by the way, who move to Russia tell me that one of the reasons they move here is the opportunity to not just work, but also to travel and to see their different time zones and to go from the sea to the north to the south and to see the mountains and the Ural Mountains and Altai Mountains and Caucasus and all these places. So it's a part of your life too. Russia doesn't not just want you to live in one small apartment and work all the time as people, for instance, in Europe or in New York do. I
Mhm.
know I lived in the United States, but we also want you to enjoy your young life.
Yes.
That's what Russia is about.
Yes, that's wonderful. I actually travel a lot since I arrived in Russia 2 years ago. I went to
See?
Nizhny Novgorod, so I use usually the night train, and it's a good opportunity to practice Russian, to talk with many people. So indeed, Nizhny Novgorod seemed to me like a great city, a great compromise between comfortable city and not too large city, exactly as you said. So I would definitely consider it. By the way, I just a question that came to my mind when you were speaking about the diploma. Is it difficult to find an equivalent? Because I know that for Russians, it's pretty much difficult sometimes when they go to Europe or to the States to find some kind of equivalent diploma or recognition for their own diploma abroad. So how is it in Russia?
Don't think about the diploma. Think about the list of the subjects or the classes you actually took.
Hmm.
And when people ask me this question, say, well, is it possible that my diploma will be accepted? It's not so much about the diploma, it's about the skill set that you
Yes.
actually had. So I have a lot of these things with kids at school. And the only thing that our universities ask is actually give us the list of the classes and how you performed on them. And we will find the equivalent here in Russia. We don't have, I mean, the main principle that I follow when I do this Move to Russia program is I would put a hashtag here. We do care. I mean, we do care about
Yeah.
you. Me and my team will be dealing with you personally. Why? Because we do care of people. That's it. Well, call it deep Russian soul, whatever. Well, since you've been in Russia for quite a while, you know that we actually do care and people want to invite you. They're very
Yes.
curious how you're doing and all this stuff. And when we ask you, how are you? We actually really mean we want to know. That's the difference. Because I've seen so many cold faces, smiling faces of the West that they got tired from that because I want to see the soul and you guys exactly like us. I mean, Europeans are very deeply minded people and they should not just accept the United States so easily as they do.
Yes. That's why sometimes it's a little bit difficult for people from the West to believe in that because we're not used to it. We're used to having to stamp a paper with a specific document. It's not based on common sense and welcoming as it might be in Russia more than in the
You
West.
did. You did. All the Europeans did. They just a little bit forgot about it. They forgot how deep history
Yeah.
and philosophy you guys have. The generations, and we learned a lot from Europe. That's why Europe is called Old Europe or Old Lady. In Russia, we call it Europe Old Lady, not because she's old by their whatever spirit, no, but because of wisdom. Europe is very wise. We have so many connections with Germany, Italy, France, and this is our land. I mean, European one. And
Yes.
Russia is a part of Europe. Just get rid of the United States from here. These are barbarians. They have no clue what they're doing. They're stealing the pieces of art, forgetting that you cannot steal the art. You
Yes.
can take just a piece, but it's not going to be the art you developed.
Yes.
You can steal history or philosophy.
Yes.
And so you are very, very nice people. I've been in Rome. I spent there a couple of days, and I saw how people are curious about you. They're not cold. I've been in Greece. People there are not cold.
Yes.
They curious. I've never been in France though. Well, hopefully someday. But I see a lot of French people here, and they warmed up. They're okay. They want to communicate with
Yes.
Russians, and Russians love French.
Yeah, I always thought it was such a pity that the new, especially French generation, is more turned toward the US, though we have so much more in common with Russia just on the basis of culture alone. So I think
Sure.
it's mostly a matter of money, I think, because there is no other reason why they would be more interested in the US than in Russia. But anyway. The next question that I have for you is about business. Because, for example, I had a very small project a few weeks ago and I tried to sign some documents, some contracts with different companies. And as a foreigner, it's pretty difficult. So how do you think this is going to evolve? If some, I don't know, some French people want to open a bakery, for example, in some city in Russia, is it feasible even now? Would you try to recommend it? Or do you think that things will evolve to
I
make
would
it easier?
try to help you. What
Yeah.
difficulties did you face? Because that shall not be a problem. Meaning, any foreigner who gets here a VNG status can register a company and buy property and run a business. What difficulties did you have? And well, you may actually, if you can share, that would be wonderful. If
Yes.
you can share, that would be wonderful just to tell me the brief of that. And I would love to help you because remember, we do care. I just really want you to be a successful example, as well as every foreigner who came to Russia, sharing our spirit and spiritual values.
Yeah.
What happened to you?
So I work for a company Skoltek in Skolkovo in Moscow. So I have a stable, like full-time job, but I also like design very much. So I designed a deck of cards illustrated based on several Russian famous characters. I applied to a website which is called planeta.ru, where I could open a crowdfunding. So all in Russian. Some people financed this project. Then I went to print it with a printing company. Then I went to deliver it with a SDEC. And each time I had to sign a contract. Even the number of my passport doesn't fit in on the website, most of them. So each time was a lot of steps for the managers to understand how to make it work with my documents, my papers, because I only have a visa for 1 year here working in Russia. This was the main basis of my difficulties. Even signing a contract with DIEC was impossible because I need to have some auto-entrepreneur status, I think, to open that.
Wow, that means a business status. You just can register it very easy.
Yeah,
It's like a 1, 2, 3 steps. That's it. So I would strongly recommend to do so and become an entrepreneur. And
yeah,
I hope you are thinking of staying in Russia.
yes.
Maybe you can get your VNG status and not just a visa and be full scale. Oh, and the deck of your card is a very interesting idea. Why not?
Yeah,
So we'll welcome you. Okay, if you need any help.
thank you.
I'm right here. It's not just for the record. It's just really where I am. You
Yes,
know all my contact information. You can send me anything, and I will be happy to help.
thank
So
you.
it works. But I will make a little note for my assistant in terms of the fields that you need to fill. So we shall adjust the websites so you
Mhm.
don't have any difficulties registering anything
Yeah.
remotely. That's a smart suggestion. Let me write it down.
I think it's pretty normal because most of the managers have never dealt with a foreigner. Even sometimes when I go to faraway places, I went somewhere far from Castrama, for example, on my own. Usually
Mm-hmm.
people don't know how to deal with foreign documents. They are not used to it, and I completely understand it. They probably don't see so many
Mm-hmm.
Europeans, and my passport is pretty different from
Yep.
theirs. But I'm definitely
Yep.
trying to work on a VNG. The only issue is that I needed to have to prolong my contract before, but I will try to get it.
Hopefully, okay. If you need any help, let me know. We
Thank
do
you.
care.
Yes. Then the next question is that many French people who are talking to me through social media are asking where to find the information. They are pretty lost about how to start the process, how to come to Russia. So they watch, for example, Alexandre or some other channels. But is there some kind of website, maybe some kind of association, organization to help understand how this process works?
Well, sometimes I think you read in my mind because in 5 days, we'll have a very big event where we're going to present a website in 4 different languages with all the valid information, as well as an NGO that will help to the foreigners to move into Russia, and additionally to form a community for those who are already in Russia.
Yes.
Because once a month in the Moscow Nationality House, we have a teeny little tea party where you can come and to talk to those people who already moved.
Yes.
That might be a very interesting opportunity for the future to form a community.
Yes.
So the whole information will be on the website.
Little pause in the video. I actually didn't know about it when I asked Maria Butina this question about a website that might maybe gather the information for foreigners. But a few days later, a few days ago, I was invited to a press conference in Moscow to talk about the new website that Maria Butina mentioned during our interview 1 week ago. So I didn't know about it, but it was just on time that I asked this question. because indeed there is a new website which was launched. I will link it in the description if you want to check it out. So you can find a lot of information there in different languages, including French, English, I think there is German, Spanish, and I forgot the rest of them. If you're a foreigner interested in moving to Russia, this website will be the main source of information, gathering many things that you need to know before you make the move.
A little secret just for you and for all the audience that watches us, that all the people who are on board of the NGO are the foreigners. These are the people who actually came and they went through all the steps by themselves, so they absolutely know what they're talking about.
Great. That's great news. And then I have another question that I was thinking the first time that I heard about this ideology visa, is that if now people don't really need to learn Russian anymore when they come here, aren't you afraid that people are going to just not learn Russian and not maybe integrate as well as before? Especially Americans. I'm thinking about Americans who tend to not really learn new languages when they move abroad. I've lived abroad before in Sweden, for example, and since everybody speaks English there, nobody was learning the language or trying to learn more about the culture.
Well, I believe it shall not be an obligation, but I would recommend to learn Russian because it's beautiful. And, you know, Russian language is very interesting because it develops your brain in a way that no one other language does. Because, look, in Russian language, since you know it a bit, you know that there are a lot of controversial phrases, like phrases that is controversial inside. Like Russians say, terribly beautiful, ужасно красивая. I mean, that cannot be true, but we have a lot of phrases like this. So we can say, да нет, не знаю. Yes, no, I don't know. And that actually makes sense because depending on the context, you are using this phrase and it's full of meaning. So there are words like that, phrases like that, and they develop your brain in such a way. Have you ever thought why in Russia we have so many developers? People who have this non-standard thinking. That's because of the language. So I would actually learn it just to benefit and to improve your brain abilities. Because that's going to work very well. And plus, it's interesting. So, no, I'm not afraid that people will not learn the language. I still know foreigners who live in Russia and they're just reluctant to study Russian and they just want to, well, they lose a lot, but they're still okay. I mean, they don't suffer. But their kids do speak Russian language. Actually, they're very proficient. So I think that shall be living in Russia should motivate one to learn Russian language, but it shall not be obligation, you know? Like if you don't learn, you get expelled. No. So happily now this requirement is removed and there are no quotas for people. So you just can come if you share Russian spiritual values, which is conservative values. That's it.
Yes. Yeah, great. It's actually one of the reasons why I got interested in Russia in general 5 years ago or something like this. The language, I just love it. I think it's beautiful, and it just makes my brain think in a different way. Because French, I speak fluently French and English, and both of them are pretty similar in the way that we think. But in Russian, sometimes you need to completely reverse your thinking just in order to make a proper sentence. So that's very interesting. The next question that I get a lot is, what's after the visa? What can you get after those 3 years? What are the possibilities?
Well, not the 3 years, I would say. Once you get a shared value visa, you just come to Russia and you get your RVP, which is a temporary residency, meaning nobody asks you any tests or anything. And then you have actually 3 or 4 months to file for your VNG status. And then you probably need to pass a Russian exam, not probably, but you have to. And then you get your residency. And it's a huge deal. Meaning once you get residency, you basically have all the rights that Russian citizens have. Well, you can't vote, you can't go and take part in the elections. However, over time, after 6 years, you absolutely can apply for Russian citizenship and become a Russian citizen. And being on their permanent residency status does not limit you in doing anything. You can travel, you can go anywhere, you can buy property, you can buy a house, study, do whatever you want. So I think Russia today gives great opportunities. And remember, for young people, many companies in Russia now are hiring people and they provide housing free housing, free schooling for the kids, free medical, and they pay very good salary.
Yeah.
So probably that's at least consider. Meaning that's very easy. I have my profile on X, and many people just send me a CV and ask, well, do I have any opportunities? And sometimes not, but most of the times, yes.
Yes.
And then it's up to you. Nobody makes a decision just instantaneously, like in 5 days. Typically, it takes from a half a year to a year for one to actually decide and move. For young people, we are more dynamic. So I think it's going to be faster.
Yeah. Most of the young people who are contacting me have very good jobs. They are very brilliant people, so it would be I think it will be easy for them to find something in Russia, but they
Sure.
have some issues, some fear that maybe it's not going to be as easy for them.
But how about just to travel? I mean, nobody tells you move tomorrow. We have now blog tours. And
Yes.
just contact me and write me a text, and I will be happy to put you in our list when we have a next tour. So tours are free.
Yeah.
You just need to get into Moscow, and you yourself, by the way, are invited as well.
Thank you.
So next time when we have a tour, maybe that's a region where you have never been, and you just go there and you explore.
Yeah.
You don't need to decide now, but an opportunity to see the beautiful Russia and see how people actually live. So I do not do touristic tours. However, you can see the Move in Russia tour, which means you can go and see the hospitals and the schools and their living areas. So, and decide maybe Russia is not for you, but maybe it is. Well,
Yes.
you don't know until you see.
Yeah. So far, I have never seen people who are disappointed in Russia. I meet many Europeans or even Canadians who move to Moscow for 2 weeks just to check if it's a city for them. And it's such extraordinary when you come from Paris or from other cities. Everything is working here, everything is clean, that they go back maybe with a too idealistic vision of Moscow when they go back home and they have stars in their eyes and they are convinced that Russia is for them. I think they need to test the idea maybe a little bit more even. I have a bit of a weird question because I heard in many of your interviews that you're very close to your grandma, or you were, and it's the same for me. So it's
I am.
important.
She's still okay.
Yes.
So I am close to my two grandmothers.
Great. I heard that even one of them speaks French, by the way. So
Yes, she does. Her name is Maria Grigorievna. She is a geography teacher,
yeah,
and she absolutely does speak French.
yeah,
So it's wonderful. She also dances waltz. I can do neither. Okay, but well, I will learn someday.
yeah.
Someday.
That's amazing. So I have I have many questions also from older people who are already in retirement, who have some savings, and they are thinking also of moving to Russia. Are they welcome? Is this program also for them?
For anyone, you should just keep in mind that Russia does not offer any social payments, any humanitarian aid. But if you're retired and you are looking for a nice and quiet and a good place to live,
Yes.
for people who retire, we give a lot of opportunities
Yes.
next to a sea, next to a river, in the mountains, or close to a big city or in a small city. Like Russia is huge.
Yes.
You can choose whatever you like. Absolutely, yes. So just the algorithm is the same. We do care about each person. So you can always contact me and, I can help you to think
Yes.
what areas you'd like. Don't just target Moscow and St. Petersburg.
Yes, of course.
There are so many interesting places to go and at least to explore. People who retire, they often want to go and to see the world a little bit.
Yes.
Russia is the world. It's just I have never been in all Russian regions myself.
Yes.
And I live here because it's just so many and so different.
Yeah.
And Christmas here is unbelievable. It's about Christmas time now, and I see at the evening the lights are on, and it's just gorgeous.
Yes. And it's very exciting also to see that things are developing. The issue for the older generation in France is that they see that the conditions are degrading slowly. And my grandma told me about that also. I went to see her 2 months ago, and she was complaining. She lives in a small city in Normandy, but she was complaining about those conditions degrading. So many of them are thinking about relocating when they have some savings and they know that they can just cover the needs. So that's why I'm asking about that. My last question is more specifically to women, because not so many women of my age, especially from the West, are interested in Russia. Of course, many men come here because they heard about the beautiful Russian women and the opportunities, but there is a general feeling that Russia is more of a country for men, not really for women. And for me, living here, after 2 years of living here, I think that it's the complete opposite. I feel much better, much safer here. In Russia, even the attitude of men is much more proper here than in France. So how would you address young women who are
I would
scared?
say that this is for women. For women, absolutely, because first of all, yes, the attitude, the politeness, you will never have here a chance to be like in New York. When you go outside during the night, you'll be raped on the street. Not in Russia. It's safe. You know it. You live
Yes.
here. You know you can just go outside and stay up all night and just walk on the streets. People will be just, dancing and chatting, and you will see an extreme order,
Yes.
meaning it's no dirt, and it's all good. It's number one. Number two, if you decide to get married and become a young mother, like for me, as a woman, what would be very, very important is, so my kid goes to the greatest school, I can work at the same time, I won't be discriminated, and I would get great payments for every second, I mean, from the second child and on. I will get payments that I can put in my mortgage. Some companies provide housing, great medical support, all their opportunities for if you want to develop yourself as a woman with a child, without a child. They're wonderful. There are so many free concerts and events and social where you want to go. What I would suggest though to do is, again, try to see it, come to Russia, and very importantly, come to our community of the Welcome to Russia group, because we can tell you, you probably don't know. It's about you, by the way, too, because we give a lot of different options for you. And if you feel a little lonely, which is completely normal for every single person who moves into a new city, even. Forget about the country, a new city. I know I moved from Barnaul to Moscow. I'm from Altai originally. And then I moved from Moscow to Washington, D.C. There is a moment when you kind of feel a bit lonely and lost. That's okay. You just find friends and socialize, and over time you will be even better than you were before.
Yes. Traveling is a great opportunity for growth, I think. That's why I'm not stopping.
And Russian food is really cool. That's a bonus.
Yes, yes. Well, one thing for women about women that is very important for me here in Russia is that you have the choice. If you want a career, if you want a family, everything is good. Whereas in France, when I was a student in the engineering school, it was almost a shame to say that you want a family, you want to have a stable family as early as possible. And it's considered as some kind of regression for the cause of women or something like this. And here we can do whatever we want. So this for me is the logical meaning of feminism, whereas in the West, feminism is turning women into men, which is completely the opposite.
You should have choices.
Yes.
If you don't have choices, that's not freedom. And here you have choices.
Yes. Yes. That was my last question. So thank you very much once again for your time.
Okay, hopefully to see you again, and you
Yes.
enjoy your time. Thank you
Yes,
so
thank you
very
so
much.
much.